Picking up where we left off in applications of rational functions 6.5, we have example 3. We're asked to solve for n. We have a couple problems. N is here in multiple locations. We see that n is being multiplied by multiple things and being added, and we see that n is in the denominator of a number, okay? So we have our work a little bit cut out for us, but it won't be too bad. So the first thing we want to do is anytime we have a fraction, especially when our desired variable's in the fraction, we want to multiply both sides by whatever that is. So here, this will cancel with the denominator. We are not concerned about the left side because there's no fraction. Therefore, we don't have to worry about canceling a denominator or anything like that. So we're going to distribute this to both terms. What do we have? We have I times r plus nr equals ne. Now, in order to get the n by itself, we have to distribute and resolve this issue going on with the parentheses. So we have IR plus INR, little r, equals NE. Now, we have an n on the left side and we have an n on the right side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to consolidate them by moving the n on the left side over. So I need to subtract both sides by INR minus INR. What do I get? I get IR equals NE minus INR. Now we can recognize that we have an n and an n there, and so we can factor out. So I'm going to factor out the n, and what's left? I am left with E minus, not n, we already factored that out, IR equals IR. In the final step, we are going to divide, and that will get rid of them. So E minus IR, cancel, cancel. Our final answer is N equals IR divided by E minus IR. And this would be useful. Oops, I accidentally wrote them as a capital R. This should be lowercase, my mistake. Lowercase, 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 lowercase. So this would be a good example for when we have like some sort of physics problem or science formula, and we just want our desired variable with the inputs around it, so we can easily solve for a desired variable. Here we have a word problem, kind of putting it into perspective. So the problem is in 2011, about 17 out of 100 Americans had no health insurance. The population at the time was about 312 million. How many million Americans had no health insurance? So we know we're comparing the uninsured to the total number of Americans, and that's 17 out of 100. Now, this proportion needs to stay the same. This ratio needs to stay the same. Remember, we're talking about rational expressions, rational equations. Rational means ratio. So we're going to have a ratio, a comparison. Now, we say that the population at the time was 312 million, which looks like that. What's on the top? An unknown. X equals the uninsured Americans. So we're going to put X on the top. So now, how do we get the variable by itself? Well, you can multiply both sides by a common denominator, which works. But in this case, because both sides are a fraction by themselves with one denominator, we can cross multiply. And that actually makes this problem a lot easier. Times 312 million, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, equals 100 times X. How do we get X by itself? Well, before I multiply all this out, I might as well simplify a little bit by dividing both sides by 100. When you do that, you can cancel out 2 zeros with the zeros in the 100. So now we just have an easier thing to multiply. So I'm going over to my calculator now, and I type in 17 times 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. And I get that X, the uninsured Americans, equals 53,040,000. And that's my answer. In the next video, we're going to talk about a not much more complicated, but a little bit more complicated example, so stay tuned.